every student, every learner needs that person on their side. That's what we exist to do and help those learners navigate within the context of the educational system that they're in.
Since the pandemic, the demand for online tutoring has surged by 200%, with families seeking flexible, effective, and accessible academic support for their kids. But with the rise of virtual tutoring, it's natural to wonder, can it really deliver the same results as in-person sessions? Recent studies suggest it can. Research from the Annenberg Institute and Johns Hopkins University shows that well-designed virtual tutoring can significantly improve student performance, rivaling traditional face-to-face methods. But what makes some virtual tutoring programs more effective than others? And beyond academics, can they foster confidence and a love for learning?
I think every learner can benefit from it, and through the power of technology, that's something that is becoming more and more possible to be able to provide that kind of access.
To explore these questions, we're joined by Jennifer Moore, the General Manager of K12 Tutoring. With firsthand experience leading K12's nationwide online tutoring service, Jennifer offers unique insights into what drives success in virtual learning. Jennifer, welcome to the show. Jennifer Moore, once again, welcome to What I Want to Know. Look, I've been eager to chat with you, not only because of the work you do in the tutoring world here at K12 Stride, but you're pretty active, practicing your running and training. Talk about just the idea of movement as it relates to your day-to-day, because it obviously feeds into your energy.
Well, I do a lot of things. The thing that I hadn't even told you about yet is I'm also an opera singer. And so I started all of my education was actually in music. And then subsequently I got into work in education. I started off as a tutor and a test prep teacher, actually, when I first moved to the New York City area. I moved into more of the sort of ed tech product management world, and then ultimately into program line portfolio management and general management, which is what I do today. I'm the general manager of K12 Tutoring.
Distinguish tutoring in person versus the notion of virtual tutoring, which you're driving at K12.
Yep. Yeah, so we are an online tutoring company. So all of our tutors meet face-to-face, like in a Zoom room, like we're all very used to doing, but it's in a very specialized virtual classroom environment that's really optimized for learning. But it's face-to-face, it's voice-to-voice, you're building that relationship, you're building that connection. And then there's all sorts of great educational tools. There's whiteboarding, there's polls, there's chats, there's quizzes. There's all sorts of things that you can do. You can share multimedia in that environment. So it's really optimized around learning, but ultimately, it is a face-to-face connection. And when you look at the sort of reviews that students, their guardians are leaving, so much of it has to do with that personal side of things. They're like, oh, this tutor was so kind. They were so patient. They really understood where I was struggling and helped me out. Like those are the things that we hear over and over again. We wouldn't hear those things if that sort of personal human-to-human magic weren't happening in the tutoring environment.
When you talk about training your tutors to work in that environment, it's reminiscent of what I've heard our Chief Learning Officer, Nyoka McCoy, talk about with the teacher training that exists generally, where if you're a teacher or a tutor or an adult helping a child in a virtual environment, so how do you go about the business of training a tutor who may be used to face-to-face settings and having them understand that you have to sort of approach it a little differently if it's virtual to build that connection?
Yeah, that is the primary thrust of the onboarding and training that we do with all of our tutors who join our platform. So, they're coming in, we make sure they have active teacher certifications, they pass background checks, all of those things, those are in place. So we know this is a person with the education
Yeah.
and the experience.
They
to be
have
able
the
to
chops.
succeed.
They have the
right.
chops.
They have the chops. That is table stakes. There's no doubt about that coming in. But a lot of them, as you're saying, have the majority of their experience teaching in brick and mortar environments. We do have also a lot of experienced virtual teachers who come in and work for us as well. That's great. But the bulk of the gap really to be bridged is helping the tutors adapt those instructional strategies into the online environment. And so being able to fluently use the platform, use the tools that are provided in it, they have to do samples of teaching in that environment and receive feedback and coaching along the way. That really is the thing, because it is a different space. If you're used to being in a brick and mortar classroom in front of a large group of kids, how are you translating that sort of personal connection and those engagement strategies to the work with the individual student or the small group of students in this online environment? That takes some work for a lot of the teachers who are coming in as tutors with us. We're seeing and really understanding at a quantitative level what is helping the tutoring really, really accelerate some learners the quickest, and then how can we expand that out to all? So that is a research project that is in progress that I'm really excited about with our research team. But sort of in the aggregate, we have done several efficacy studies so far looking at groups of learners that we've worked with through schools and districts. So K12 Tutoring is available. You can go to our website and engage a tutor directly for your son or daughter, but we also work with schools and districts to provide tutoring at large scale to their student populations who really need it. And so those implementations provide us a really great opportunity with larger sample size to measure the effectiveness of what we're seeing in terms of engagement, in terms of academic outcomes. And we have a couple of really great research reports that we've been able to publish to date. We have got another couple sort of in the hopper that we're working on and getting validated. We've got ESSA level 3 certification. And the gold standard really is, how are you able to see statistically significant differences in those students who tutor with us versus a group of students, a matched sample of students who don't engage in the tutoring. And we've seen really strong results, particularly in sort of upper elementary and middle school ELA and math so far, in terms of looking year over year at state assessments, looking at other sort of standardized progress benchmarking measures. So those are the results that really keep us going, and then feed those sort of more and more detailed level research questions around, okay, what is the magic that's happening in some of these sessions, and how do we quantify that and make sure that is the gold standard that we're seeing across the board.
How do parents or students pick a tutor in the K12 tutoring program?
This is something that we're constantly iterating on and working to improve. So, any day, depending on when somebody may be listening to this, they would come to our website and see a different experience, because we're always trying to find out what's going to be most helpful in that tutor selection process, because that's a tough one, right? I mean, think about like people in like online dating sites and any sort of like big decision in our lives where we have a lot of choices. Choice is great. Choice can also be really difficult and paralyzing, right? So especially because all of our tutors are certified teachers. That on the one hand, we have a sort of persona that we've talked to of families who are just like, let's just pick one, let's see how it goes. And, either it'll be a good match or it won't, but, there's hundreds of tutors here on this platform. We can try a few and see, how that actually resonates in real life. But we also provide really thorough bios and a lot of helpful tools in terms of like filtering and sorting. We even have like a little questionnaire that families can go through and let us know a little bit about their child and their needs, and we can recommend some matches. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to availability. So it's like if you need somebody on Thursdays at 4 p.m. every week, our website can also help you find that. But I think one of the great things about the online tutoring model is, not only the convenience, the accessibility, but also the ability to find that perfect tutor for you, irrespective of geography, right? You're not constrained by who happens to live within a 10-minute drive of your home. nor do you have to get in a car and drive anywhere. You can, find that tutor who works for you out of a nationwide pool of really expert folks and, find that best match.
So I have one last question, Jennifer, and it's more of a global question. This is what I really want to know. You've talked a lot about personalized learning as it relates to just tutoring in general. And I know that's a goal that we talk about achieving. Some school districts have a hard time. They still have kind of a, assembly line approach to doling out services, not through no fault of their own. It's just really, it's been baked into traditional systems. But where do you see the role of tutoring going in the future as it relates to us all doing a better job of instilling a personalized learning model for every child?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question in that way, because I think that that's a really common misconception, preconception about tutoring is that it is this niche thing that's for some people. That, traditionally tutoring has been associated with this service that families engaged and paid for themselves. And generally these are families with means. But one of the things that has been really exciting to see over the last several years, even while we've seen this pandemic learning loss, a sort of generationally significant setback in terms of our educational system here as a country, there's also been a tremendous amount of research being done around the impact of what is called high impact tutoring.
Yes.
And to any of your listeners, I'd recommend them going back in your back catalog and listening to the episode with Dr. Susanna Loeb of the National Student Support Accelerator.
She was terrific.
I mean, that she personally is terrific, and that organization as well, NSSA, has been just a real powerhouse in terms of working with researchers to generate and disseminate the research on tutoring interventions and how powerful they can be, and creating tools to make those actionable. But in short, the bread and butter of what we do a lot, the most when working with schools and districts, is called high impact tutoring. And there's a really clear formula there for what works. And it's when a student meets on a consistent basis, so call it 3 or more times a week, with a consistent tutor who's well trained, who's well equipped, who has high quality instructional materials, and is guided by data in terms of what are we working on with this student, what does the student most need, and what's the most effective way to help them get there. And the evidence base for this model is so strong, and we see it in our own outcomes. But to your question, implementation around this is hard, right? This is something that really is above and beyond that sort of cookie cutter, you said, assembly line way of handling education. But there are strong models that you can use, right? There is a way that you can set up these programs to work well at scale. And, for us, where we help is really with, breaking down that barrier of sourcing hundreds of certified teachers who can work with students in this personalized, in-depth way. And in the context of, that individual school or district's bell schedules and everything else that they have going on for those students. And so, we've seen that be alone just kind of our ability to provide these expert caring professionals as a huge boon, particularly to rural districts who might otherwise struggle to source qualified tutors in that kind of volume. But we can also help through our platform that handles that scheduling, the administration, the data collection that's needed to implement a really high quality program. So this is absolutely something that can be done effectively at scale. This could be the sort of thing that, every student, every learner needs that person on their side, sort of bringing our conversation full circle there. That's what we exist to do, and help those learners navigate within the context of the educational system that they're in. And, I think every learner needs this, can benefit from it. And, through the power of technology, that's something that is becoming more and more possible to be able to provide that kind of access.
Jennifer Moore, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us on What I Want to Know.
Kevin, thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to What I Want to Know. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, so you can explore other episodes and dive into our discussions on the future of education. And write a review of the show. I also encourage you to join the conversation and let me know what you want to know using hashtag WIWTK on social media. That's hashtag WIWTK. For more information on Stride and online education, visit stridelearning.com. I'm your host, Kevin P. Chavous. Thank you for joining What I Want to Know.